Go behind the scenes with Toronto's busiest trauma units on The Critical Hour. Friday on Discovery Health Channel.
Impact. How much can the human body take? At over 200 miles an hour, a race car driver loses control. In an instant, your life can be shattered. Without warning, your body broken, your future left hanging by a thread. Only the heroism of total strangers, cutting-edge technology, and the practice of bold medicine stand between life and death. These are stories of survival about real people pushed past their limits, lives forever changed by a moment of impact. At over 200 miles per hour, driver Kenny Brack's race car disintegrated. Swedish-born driver Kenny Brack has been racing all of his life. He has a long list of victories.
Checker flags are out and you name it.
Including a first-place finish at the 1999 Indianapolis 500. In October of 2003, Kenny hoped to add another win to his record. He was running in the top 5 at the Indy Racing League Series finale at the Texas Motor Speedway. His wife Anita cheered him on.
I was down in the pit lane with the team next to the pit stand. I was 8 months pregnant.
It's about a 200-lap race, which makes it about a 300-mile race.
In that fight, and amazingly, those five...
The race had only 12 laps to go. Kenny's car was running a little behind Thomas Schechter's car when they came into the turn together.
To make this all happen, he's got to be thinking...
Kenny kind of came down a little bit, and Schechter kind of held his line, and tires rubbed. When two tires that are going around get together, one car tends to take off, and that's what happened to Kenny.
Kenny was sealed in the cockpit, spinning down the racetrack.
It took me like 2 seconds to realize this was major, this was huge, this was maybe Kenny was dead.
Emergency crews raced to the scene of the crash.
There was so much debris on the racetrack, we didn't even know how many cars were involved.
I just saw the replay in my head all the time, so then you cried. I mean, just cried my eyes out.
Kenny was unconscious when we first got there.
Within minutes, Kenny was carefully lifted from the wreckage. Paramedics immobilized him and rushed him to an ambulance. It was obvious that both his ankles had been crushed. They were bleeding profusely. Kenny was airlifted to Parkland Hospital over 30 miles away in Dallas. Upon arrival, he was rushed to a waiting team of doctors and nurses. A CAT scan revealed that Kenny had numerous severe injuries. When his car hit the wall, the phenomenal force of the impact broke both his ankles, his right thigh, his sternum, and 2 ribs. As the cockpit spun wildly, Kenny's L3 vertebra shattered, and the joints between the other lumbar vertebra were pulled apart, causing the nerves to Kenny's legs to come out of the spinal column. The spinal fracture was so severe that the nerves of Kenny's spine were unprotected. One wrong move could leave Kenny paralyzed for life.
The first surgery was his legs, his ankles, because they were open wounds, so they had to take care of those at once.
That night, surgeons operated on his fractured thigh and ankles. Titanium plates and screws were used to reassemble the broken bones. Kenny was given less than 24 hours to recover. Then the doctors turned their attention to his back.
His spinal injury was a unique kind of fracture that results from a high-speed motor vehicle collision.
2 surgeries were needed to repair the damage to Kenny's spine.
The goal of the first surgery was to stabilize the spine. When we got in there, there was evidence of spinal fluid, places where it shouldn't be, so that required an extensive repair.
A rod and screws into each vertebra were used to hold Kenny's spine in position while it healed. Doctors had to take great care when dealing with his nerves.
Initially, when I was putting his nerves back into his spinal canal, I was concerned that he wouldn't be able to walk again.
It was an agonizing 8-hour wait for Anita.
I was devastated for a while because I didn't know, will I be able to walk? Will I be able to move? What can he do later on? We didn't know.
Kenny was put in a back brace, and after a few days, he was transferred to Methodist Hospital, close to home in Indianapolis. Kenny began his rehab, but his progress was short-lived.
First, he was fine. Secondly, he was starting to feel a little bit short of breath. Thirdly, he was feeling more short of breath. And finally, he didn't feel better.
As a precaution, his doctor ordered a CAT scan. What he found in Kenny's lung was shocking.
That had a huge blood clot, like in the worst possible spot you can have.
A clot in the lungs, called a pulmonary embolism, can be quickly fatal. Death can occur within 30 minutes of the onset of symptoms. Doctors gave Kenny drugs that reduce clotting, then suctioned excess fluid out of his chest with a needle. Kenny recovered from the near-fatal complication quickly. Within a week, he returned to rehab. But now, the driver who conquered the Indy 500 had a new race to run, and he would have to start from the very beginning.
Just learning how to walk again was a big thing. Somebody came in with a walker and said, you can stand up. And I got to the door 8 feet, and I got 8 feet back, and I was completely finished, you know. I was like this.
A once highly athletic person, Kenny was now faced with unfamiliar obstacles.
Instead of winning big races, now a big victory for me was walking 30 feet. So that was my new world, my new goals.
Looking back at the crash, Kenny knew he was lucky to be alive.
To survive something like I went through is amazing. I mean, the car exploded. The only thing that's intact in that crash is the actual cockpit. It's a very violent racing crash, extremely violent.
Racing cars have a black box, just like airplanes do. Jet fighter pilots pass out when forces exceed 7 Gs. Sensors in Kenny's car measured forces over 200 Gs.
To my knowledge, it's the highest force in any of the previously measured crashes in any type of racing.
Almost 3 months after the accident, Kenny was able to go home, now a father. On New Year's Eve, Anita had given birth to their baby girl, Karma. Not being able to race was hard on Kenny, but rehabilitation allowed him to spend time with his family and to work on one of his other passions, his band, Kenny Brack and the Subwoofers.
Do you remember how old you were in 1979?
Kenny wanted to get back to racing, but his body couldn't handle another crash, even a mild one. And it's an accepted fact that a race car driver will hit the wall regularly.
Basically, you have to count having an incident a couple of times a year, and when you do, it's pretty high forces.
Finally, almost a year after his near-fatal accident, Kenny ran his first race, the Porsche Carrera Cup Road race in Sweden. He came in 5th.
I still love driving, and I still would like to get back into IndyCar racing if I feel that I have the qualities that I need to be competitive. If not, well then it's been a heck of a ride, and it's still turned out very good for me.